Championship has been put out there. TBS Championship. Who is going to be the first winner of it? Why is the answer Jade Cargill? We're going to talk about it in just a second, so stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, folks, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, Ed Danson, of course, and alongside my tag team partner, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will.
Come on.
That guy. Yes, TBS Championship. So as most of us know, as most of you know, AEW will be heading over to TBS. So it's AEW Dynamite, right? We'll be headed over to TBS, and to mark the occasion, to make TBS feel as though they're important, AEW have decided to create, and in collaboration, of course, to create this TBS Championship. Very much so the secondary women's championship for AEW. Of course, we have the AEW World Women's Championship, of course, and the TBS is now coming, and we're having a tournament to determine the new TBS champion. The question is, who is going to be that champion? Who do we have waiting in the wings to be that champion? We have the likes of Chris Statlander, Thunder Rosa, Hikaru Shida, former champion, AEW Women's Champion, Nyla Rose, another former Women's Champion. Jade Cargill's name's been thrown in the hat. Big Swole, Red Velvet. There are a good number of women who I feel easily deserve or would make complete sense as to be the first TBS champion, and of course Ruby Soho as well. Can't forget her as well. But here at WrstlXtra, between myself and my friend Mex, we are saying it would make no sense if it wasn't Jade Cargill.
Yeah.
Mex, take the floor. Tell me why you think it should be that Jade Cargill.
That B. Look, there is a lot of reasons, and I don't even think these reasons are like fan made, or we're pulling for Jade, or we're wanting a black woman to rise to the top. This is all AEW's doing, right? She has won 15 out of 15 out of 15 matches she's been part of. Dark Elevation, Dynamite, Rampage this year. Clean slate, no draws, no losses. Apart from if you want to count, the Battle Royal, Casino Battle Royal, something like that, which she didn't win. But that doesn't go towards your record per se. So she is the number one contender in that division for the women's title. And let's be honest, she's probably not going to dethrone Britt Baker. Britt Baker is she's transcended that title, if we're completely honest. She's above the title somewhat.
Almost,
so that's not for Jade right now. So we've talked about her accolades in terms of her win records. She's number one contender. The look of her, which they play on a lot in terms of her absolute, fit physique. She is packaged like she is what we've called many times our chocolate China from the past. I even saw her making reference to wanting to do something that China done some years ago, but I guess we could talk about that another time.
That's a different show.
That's a different show. And ultimately, they have created this dominant figure within the women's division that has slightly run through everybody, apart from maybe a Britt Baker, even the Nylas and Thunder Rosas, who you would say are the next echelon down from the champion. She's beaten them in a triple threat match recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand completely the argument that within in-ring competition, she may not be 100% there yet. But when a lot of people are given the title, a lot of them aren't there yet.
Right.
I think, you know, this is a homegrown talent in a sphere where everyone says, oh, you know, just loads of WWE people coming in and taking the belts. He's a homegrown talent, someone you guys have built, someone that you guys have pushed in front of us non-stop, whether that's through backstage promos or dominant squash victories. Here comes along a title, which isn't the top title, but even if you gave her this title, very much how the TNT title's been booked in like this kind of not really feud based and feud to feud, but more like an open challenge, like week to week or every 2 weeks, open challenge. Jade could do the exact same thing, learn her craft a bit more, develop, you know, more of the skills that a champion would need in terms of promos and all of that other side of things. It just makes sense. There's two other names that I would throw in the hat: Serena Deeb and Ruby Soho. I don't think anyone else could really be a serious contender at this point. But I think the choice of the three should probably still be Jade. They should gamble on Jade because they've made her what she is right now.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it would make sense. Again, for me, there's two arguments for me that would make me think it may not happen. The first one being, as you mentioned already, her being, you know, relatively, maybe compared to most of the other women in the division, being green, not as experienced in the ring and that kind of thing. Maybe it's a bit too much of a push to make her a champion, as much as it's the secondary championship, and as much as it's not going to be the most important championship within the company. Some may say it's right for them to be building her, but then in order for her to then reach a place where it's kind of like there's no argument. The only other thing for me is, and this may be a bit of a timing thing, I don't know exactly when the dates and all the rest of it for, in terms of her getting her opportunity at Britt Baker, and then when this TBS championship is going to be, decided. But the only other thing for me is the simple fact that she is the number one contender for the AEW Women's Championship. Is that too much on one person, in the sense of, not in terms of like pressure and can she handle it, just as in too much story for one person. So her being number one contender, then maybe she, obviously we know she's not going to win that match. If she does, we're going to go crazy and I'll be completely surprised. And I think I'll change my mind about AEW altogether and watch it every single week. I won't. But yeah, does she lose that match and then straight away become the TBS champion? Is that too much for one person in terms of a story? If that was anyone else, doesn't matter who it is, how experienced they are, how great they are, what history they have, would that then still be too much on one personality?
Well, to be honest, if you ask me, they're already dodging the fact she's number one contender.
Very true.
They're not talking about it. They're pretending like it's not happening, yet they're still putting her out there and she's winning matches. Like they put her up against Layla Hirsch some weeks ago back in New Jersey, and AEW have become synonymous with, if you're in your hometown, you win. Layla Hirsch was in her hometown of New Jersey and didn't win to Jade. Jade beat her. So cool, we got over that hump. They then put her in a triple threat match with Nyla and Thunder Rosa, which they could have, Nyla and Thunder could have pinned each other, and that would have been a loss on Jade's record. They let Jade walk out of there with the win in a triple threat match. So this is what I mean. They know what they're doing in terms of building this woman. They're not acknowledging that she's number one contender per se, and that she should be fighting Britt Baker next. So if you really want to dodge this corner you're almost backing yourself into right now with Jade, the TBS is your chance to, literally press escape sort of thing out of the corner and give her another belt and ultimately move her away from the rankings of going for the world championship.
Yes, very true. Very true.
And that's
I mean,
that's the way I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, in that respect, it would be perfect. As we said, the TBS is not the biggest championship, and at the same time, it still allows her and allows them to build Jade, regardless. You know what I mean? It gives them even more reason to build her, or something else to put on her record to build her and stuff like that. And eventually, whether it be a year, even 2 years, then be a real serious contender for the women's championship. It is very weird that she won this triple threat match against a former champion and someone else who has had a very serious feud with Britt Baker in the past and Thunder Rosa. For me, if anyone at all is going to dethrone Britt Baker, it's going to be Thunder Rosa.
100%.
And right now, Jade's now in this mix-up with Thunder Rosa, even though she's the number one contender and should be going after Britt Baker. So for me, this is more of a ploy to raise Thunder Rosa's,
profile,
persona
maybe,
and profile, and then at the same time, we then get Jade to then become TBS champion. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. As we said, there are so many names that it could work for. Chris Statlander, you mentioned Serena Deeb, who's kind of recently come back and stopped Hikaru Shida getting her 50th win. I've got a feeling this is going to be like a 2-month thing for Hikaru Shida to get this 50th win in a very scary way.
Yeah.
In a very scary way, I feel like that 50th win is going to be winning the TBS championship.
Maybe.
Who knows?
It makes sense for these guys. Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? But yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's so many names. I think it's quite exciting, if I'm honest. Actually,
it is. And to be honest, even as you just mentioned it now, maybe Jade is the last hurdle for Thunder Rosa to climb before she gets to Britt Baker. She may get her first loss to Thunder Rosa, which is nothing to be embarrassed about, sort of thing. Thunder Rosa is brilliant, and then Thunder Rosa goes on to dethrone Britt eventually, whenever that's going to happen. So yeah, that makes sense.
It's going to be very, very interesting. What is your take on any of our other women in the tournament? So we have, well, I don't even know who else is actually in the tournament. So I don't know if Red Velvet, Big Swole, Kiera Hogan is a new one as well. Do any of those have any type of realistic chance to win this thing?
No, I would say I feel like they're a bit far away. I mean, even if we're just going by who got promos when they said they're doing this, it was Jade Cargill, it was Ruby Soho, it was Thunder Rosa. There was someone else I can't remember. It was Serena Deeb didn't get one, to be honest. But
no.
I think like with Serena Deeb, it's very much her character doesn't talk per se. Like she does her talking in the ring, as they say. So yeah. That's why for me, it's definitely, Serena Deeb, maybe as a heel champion, maybe has the first shot at it, carries it for a while. The babyface Ruby Soho comes and takes it from her. In the background, maybe they'll be building some other heels. I guess by then, maybe Thunder Rosa might be women's world champion. They're building some other heels in the background for her. Swole, I think, could be someone that they use to have a couple good matches within the tournament, but she doesn't win. Yeah, Kiera Hogan as well. They've been using her a lot recently. She could fill a similar role. Red Velvet seems, in all politeness, to have fallen off a cliff after like the Jade Cargill stuff. We haven't seen much of her at all for whatever reason. So yeah, I do only think there's about 3 serious names around it, and it's Soho, Deeb, and Cargill as maybe like a wild card.
Okay. In terms of the TBS Championship itself, of course, we will. I'm sure we will only see it on Dynamite now, because Dynamite is going to be the only show on TBS. Now, will that help this whole women's division crisis on AEW, or do you think it will make a difference?
I think there's potential for it to be very good. The fact that like maybe the TBS title is only seen / defended on the TBS show, being Dynamite, and then the TNT one will be defended on Rampage. I mean, we've been asking for Rampage especially to feel different from Dynamite, so making them have its own belts is basically like the SmackDown and Raw championships. It can work, but one's men's and one's women's. I think it's a pretty good idea. I always think it's very dangerous for you to start naming your titles after networks and stuff like that, because if you leave the network or move around, now the whole lineage of the title almost has to change as well. But yeah, I think this should be very good. Dynamite is obviously the longer show as well, so they can do more in the way of women's stuff. Maybe showing us actual championship matches, showing us like contender matches for that title as well. They don't really have an excuse now. This is them amping up their efforts on the women's division. So and to be honest, they've been doing a good job. I know we're going to talk about the WWE women's division today, which but it's they have no excuse now. You've put it out there that you're going to do this and all of this kind of stuff for the women's division, new belt. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, it should be very interesting. I think it will help. We've talked, and loads of people talk about this whole women's division and AEW, and we've been not getting enough time and all the rest of it. And at one point, the problem was that there weren't enough women in the division. Now it's like there's more than enough, and with very good pedigree and all that type of thing. Now they need to capitalize on it and give us more of them. As great as Britt Baker's been doing with her side of things, everyone else now needs something else to do something for themselves. So I think it's a very good idea, and I think it should work. It should work very easily. As you said, there's now no excuse.
There isn't. I mean, to be honest, there never has been, because as soon as the forbidden door was open, they've had access. We've seen the NWA women over there. We've seen, women for other promotions, Impact, Stardom in Japan. They've all come over. So, as long as they don't do anything stupid, like put this tournament on YouTube or something and give it the respect and reverence the tournament deserves, if you're going to crown someone, on TV, then they're off to an improvement on, the previous stuff that they've done.
Speaking of crowning, we now know that we're gonna have King of the Ring, and now there's also what's the women's one called again?
Queen's Crown.
That's the one. I like the name. I love the name. I'm glad it's not Queen of the Ring. As much as I wouldn't have been upset about it, I love the fact that it's a very different name, and it definitely works.
I love the name, but it's a pity they're not treating it with the same respect.
Wow, that's what I was about to say. What is the state of this? One, the tournament. Two, you can argue the women in it, and also one or two that are not. What's next?
Bruv, like, firstly, before you even solely focus on the women, even when they do the field, for the women's tournament and the men's tournament, I look at the brackets and I'm thinking, what the heck are you doing here? Like, with all due respect, all of these lot are obviously very good at their craft, but you're calling a tournament King of the Ring. And I'm not seeing, like, out of the 8 people they may start with, like literally 2 of them may be absolute technicians, and the rest are just like, how did you get here? Like, there's no qualification, there's no like, just bro, like, I'm not, with all due respect, I love this guy, and he's probably gonna win, and I'm gonna get onto that in a second. But what is Jinder Mahal doing in a King of the Ring tournament?
You know what? Actually, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because my thing is this: we know that we saw the brackets, and everyone, if you didn't get excited by this, I don't know why you watch wrestling, but everyone got excited at the prospect of Xavier Woods versus Kofi Kingston, because we had Xavier Woods versus Ricochet in the first round, and then Kofi Kingston versus Jinder Mahal in the first round as well. And on the same side of the brackets, and if either of them win their match, the next one is Kofi and Xavier. Why did Jinder win?
Modern day Maharaja. They're giving him maybe that second wind, that WWE champion feeling again, but in 2021 this time. Like, bro, they've made so much noise, including Xavier Woods has made so much noise about becoming King of the Ring. I don't even believe it's happening. I honestly don't even believe it's happening. I can't even imagine one, Big E WWE champion, Xavier King of the Ring, and Kofi doing nothing. I think that might be something they've probably thought about and think, oh, we can't really do that. What would Kofi be? The jester in the castle? Like, what could we really give him? Like, and I just feel like, well, some things for WWE are so obvious. It's like, but we're not gonna do that. But why not? Because the obvious works. Like we said, like they could have had Kofi overcome Jinder. It could have been a gentleman thing, like Xavier, I know you want this, but I want to be King of the Ring too. And then maybe Xavier wins, still a handshake, and he continues. But they've literally kicked Kofi out of the competition. Next week, I'm pretty sure Jinder is going to kick Xavier out this competition, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jinder goes on and wins this whole thing. I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
It's crazy because when did they crown the champ, the winner?
Saudi show next Thursday. And it's not Jinder's ends, but it's pretty much Jinder's ends.
Right. It's not Jinder's ends at all. I mean, obviously Jinder is Indian. Saudi show is Muslims, and it's a very different type of people, as much as some not very knowledgeable people will say they all look the same, but it's a very different thing. It would probably cause a ruckus if he won, to be fair, within the crowd.
You're saying some knowledgeable people might not think that, but I wouldn't put it past them to think, they're all one people and they make some type of ignorant call like that and, make him king in Saudi.
It's scary because when he sat down and put the crown on his head, I was like, you know what? This could actually work. What's crazy is, and what's upsetting nowadays, and I think someone's mentioned it in the comments, is that the King of the Ring has absolutely diminished in terms of what it means, what it is, what it's supposed to be, what it should become, and what it used to be. We saw the likes of Stone Cold, Bret Hart, the Macho Man, all became King of the Ring and then would go on literally within that same year, or within 2 years of that, becoming like Intercontinental champions, world champions, the biggest stars on the road to becoming the biggest stars. All those three guys that I've mentioned are literally some of the most renowned stars in WWE history. You look at the most recent King of the Ring,
man, like Happy
Baron Corbin, then King Corbin, and now Happy Corbin. He's not moved at all in terms of card, star power, anything. Not moved at all. If anything, he's gone down. If that. And then they randomly gave Shinsuke the crown for what? And then we've now got a King of the Ring. Shinsuke's not even in it. He's not meant. Like I don't understand what's going on. The only thing for me that would make sense is Xavier Woods becoming King of the Ring. But as you said, it now feels a little bit too obvious to actually happen. And with this, with not having Kofi face him in the next round, there's definitely a level of prestige that's disappeared already for the tournament itself. I mean, we had Finn Balor and Cesaro in a match. That was could have easily been a final, maybe. But I just don't know what this thing is, and I got excited by both tournaments, the King of the Ring and the Queen's Crown, and now I just kind of don't care. Which is sad. In terms of the Queen's Crown, no Naomi in the tournament. Are we missing something here, or is it a good thing for her to then focus more on this whole thing with Sonya Deville?
Bro, I don't even believe for a second she's having this match with Sonya Deville. It came too easy. Like Sonya Deville said on SmackDown. Oh yeah,
so
next week you're gonna have a match with me,
bro.
bro. She's gonna be like, I'm not wrestling you this week. Like,
yeah. I can't bother.
I don't think it's happening.
I've got official things to do.
Yeah,
that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be something crazy like that. I mean, I was definitely here for the longed out storyline of her still, Sonya still avoiding Naomi or making things hard for her every week in some way, shape, or form. I would have rather it have been maybe putting her in a handicap match one week, or putting her with some random person in a tag team match and all that kind of stuff to make sure she loses or to make it hard for every week. And then Naomi outbursts, attacks her, and then we get, all right, you want it, me and you, no problem. This call into the office, right, you're having a match next week. Oh, against me.
Literally, I was sitting right here when I watched it, and when she said that, I literally just slumped back in my chair thinking, this ain't happening. It's not happening.
Even Adam Pearce looked like, huh?
Yeah.
Nah.
I mean, Naomi's keeping busy on TV, but like we've already just said, how they pick this tournament, they should either pick the actual technicians, if it's Queen's Crown, King of the Ring, the real technicians of wrestling should appear, should take up the 8 paces, or how it almost used to be, the guys that are next up. Those are the guys that guys and girls that should kind of be propelled into this position. Like if they think a lot of Liv Morgan, if they want to kind of reboot Shayna Baszler, those are the people that should be in it. Ibrahim Youssef Omar says here, Sami Zayn put the crown on SmackDown, so I think whoever wears the crown is not going to win. We all thought this was the maths behind it.
Used to be.
Baron Corbin put on the crown 2 years ago and won it.
Exactly.
So I don't think this particularly stands. And then the other thing, like we were saying, is the match time. They've been a lot in the women's has been absolutely dreadful, bro. Like Zelina Vega, Carmella was like, no, Zelina Vega, who does she face? I can't remember who she faced in the first round, but that match was like a minute and a half.
Tony Storm,
of all people, like bro. A minute and a half, and then Zelina won, which was a shock. The other women's match was about at that time. Then they done the exact same stuff on Raw last night. Xavier Woods' match with Ricochet was a brilliant match, by the way.
It was.
But I think someone said that match was longer than. No, let me get this right. If you combine both of the women's Queen Crown matches, Xavier Woods' match was still longer than combined, plus 5 minutes.
Whoa.
They're not giving the women's tournament any time. Why do it? Why? Why are you bringing out this whole crown and telling us you're gonna you clearly don't care about it? Like, let's be honest. Why are we?
I've never understood this whole thing, and it's AEW definitely, victim or have guilty of doing this as well, where they have a tournament or a big match and get us all excited, but yet they're not excited for it themselves. And we get this, in AEW's, in AEW, for example, we've had great matches, Casino Battle Royal matches, the ladder matches. They've been great matches. We get a winner. The winner then does nothing. Nothing at all. With WWE, what they do, and as we've just said, what they do a lot is get us excited for a tournament or a big match, and then that itself isn't great. Or there's there's more hype in the promo videos than there is in the whole tournament.
In the action,
I've never understood that. I don't get why bother with all of that, putting things together and to fill, even if it is just to fill cards, like give us something to get excited about. Give us some women that are, on the same level as each other, or we're arguing every single week as to who's actually going to win, and what I mean, it's that close to where we're like, who's going to win, and it's unpredictable. Not,
bro. Talk of Champions here has more or less nailed it. They're honestly rushing the whole thing, is their comment. And I think this is definitely a thing where, okay, let's look at least Raw for the past few months, when they were having this whole Charlotte eventually beating Nikki ASH and the Rhea Ripley stuff before that, blah blah blah. Since then, you could have been doing on a week-to-week basis qualifying matches for this tournament. Right, so it makes sense now who is entering this tournament. We've seen why they merit entering this tournament. And then since then as well, you could have like just one Queen's Crown match inside the tournament every week, rather than trying to squeeze two into like 3 minutes. You could have at least one 10-minute match every week, sort of thing. Building up to the point where you're going to crown your king and your queen at the Saudi show, if that's going to be the final destination. Like, you're not writing good stories away from the championship anyway. Some would argue you're not writing good stories for the championship.
Very true.
So at least use tournaments like this to make your creative easy for you.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to explain anything to you guys. It's a Queen's Crown tournament, qualifying
exactly.
for the next 4 weeks. The next 4 weeks after that, it will be the actual tournament matches, and then the champion will be crowned at the next pay-per-view. That's your creative done for 2 months. Then you can worry about it after then.
And you're squeezing it into 4 weeks.
Literally, like, it makes no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I just don't get it. Just from the second I saw that there were only 8 people in both tournaments with no qualifications, no mention of whoever, no reason as to why this person, that person, or I just knew it was, it was going to be a bad thing. Moving on just a little bit, talking of the women's division in WWE, we've had the draft. We know that the Raw Women's Champion is going to SmackDown, and the SmackDown Women's Champion is going to Raw. The SmackDown Women's Champion is having a match, a triple threat match with Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, who's going to Raw. But on Raw, we had all 3 women from SmackDown in a tag team match with the Raw Women's Champion. And I'm surprised I actually got all of that right.
You kept up. Well done.
Because, wow. What is going on? What is going on? I must say this. I actually loved that tag team match
segment. It was hardly a match, but I agree.
The fracas, the madness, the melee, as it was mentioned in the commentary as well. It was just like the most perfect, disturbing, match ever. It worked so perfectly. But is it detrimental? Does it look great? Who comes out on top? Are all 4 women winning in this, in terms of their, their star power or the rest of it? What's your thoughts on what's going on with these 4 women right now?
These are the 4 women at the top of the division. This is the horsewoman. Unfortunately, one horsewoman's at home right now, and Bianca Belair has slotted straight into her place. Seamlessly, completely. This shows as well the lack of anything happening around challenger-wise for the Raw Women's Championship that Charlotte holds on SmackDown. That's why they've more or less involved Charlotte in their SmackDown business, because there's nothing going for her. But I honestly feel like all 4 women are just doing a great job telling a story which is very muddled up. Like it was a tag team match which never got started because obviously they all hate each other basically. Adam Pearce comes running out saying to them, "Oh, you're disgracing yourselves. Like, you have an opportunity to show how good you are, this, that, and the other, and this is what you're doing." We hate each other. Sorry, what are we meant to, why are we in this tag team match together? We're meant to be fighting each other, because this is what, you know, the one time it actually made sense that why am I going to coexist? They love this coexist word. Why am I going to coexist with my enemy? Like, I don't like her, and now I'm fighting her. That makes sense. And Adam Pearce is saying, you know, you shouldn't be fighting, you should coexist. Like, you would never tell Roman and Brock Lesnar to coexist on one team. So don't come and do that to the women. I ain't having that. Like, it don't make sense. And then, like you said, we just got a fantastic melee of just madness amongst all these women. I felt like Charlotte Flair was, she's very, we always say that she doesn't kind of elevate anybody. In her own greatness, she's just great. It's like a selfish greatness sort of thing. But she is fantastic when she's put around the other ladies that are at the top sort of thing. Like, it's like she takes things seriously, like upper level sort of thing. Like we said, Bianca's just slotted straight in. Like, she's always been part of like the 4 horsewomen or anything like that. Her feat of strength on SmackDown as well, of trying to do the kiss of death to both of these guys at the same time.
Ridiculous, bro. Ridiculous.
My missus is so invested. She saw it. She saw it on Instagram, and she was like, "What?" She went to YouTube to watch the full clip and stuff. Like, it's good, but I think Becky, the plan is Becky will retain at the Saudi show. Then obviously we're going to get Becky Charlotte at Survivor Series. And then Bianca might spin off into whoever the challengers are on Raw. Sasha does the same on SmackDown. Sasha probably goes straight into a program with Charlotte, to be fair. But I think the worst thing that's going to come out of this for me personally is Becky and Charlotte doing that whole, oh, you've got the Raw belt and I've got the SmackDown belt. Let's switch. God,
I mean, we had that with the Street Profits and the New Day last year with the Tag Team Championships, which for them worked. I think it worked. There was nothing else they could have done
because of their character.
Exactly,
it worked.
Exactly. I was going to say because they were faces and all the rest of it, but with this, it doesn't make sense. I mean, when we first knew that Charlotte was going to SmackDown, we all thought, and before we saw, you know, the second half of the draft on Raw, we were all saying that, you know, maybe Bianca's gonna face Charlotte or someone's gonna face Charlotte and beat her, and then, you know, go over to Raw. Not the case, of course. So I don't know what the conclusion to the 2 championships being on separate on opposite brands. I don't know what the conclusion is going to be or supposed to be or how it's going to work. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't see, with how things are playing out at the moment, I don't see any of these champions losing their championships before the whole draft is set in stone. Becky's not losing at Crown Jewel. How Charlotte possibly loses to someone who's going to Raw. With Bianca messing in the triple threat match. There's no one to say, all right, she's gonna beat Charlotte and then she's gonna take it to Raw, and vice versa. It's so confusing. It's so confusing. Luckily, amidst all the confusion, we're getting these 4 women who are just performing brilliantly in their character, in what they're doing, in what they're about, and that has worked. But it doesn't give me any. I don't know. It gives me nothing.
Look, like you said, these are the 4 women that they clearly have they're most invested in right now. The 4 women that are top of the division. You even gave yourself a tournament to try and write stories for everyone else, and you're fluffing that right now.
Right.
So we just have to try and be invested with whatever they're doing with these 4. Whatever else is going to happen with everyone else, it happens. So, I mean, I've just seen this comment here from Batman 901. I'm telling you, Becky versus Bianca at WrestleMania. I hadn't thought this far ahead, but it kind of makes sense. To be honest, there's no one else right now anyway.
Mm.
Unless Rhea Ripley could possibly re-enter the fray, but she seems a bit far off it right now.
Yeah,
Asuka's injured. Bailey, whenever she's expected back, in
That's
whatever
not like
brand
till
she turns up on.
mid next year, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Okay, so
It's
she's out
something
of the
like that.
story. Yeah, she's out of it then. So, yeah, this pretty much seems nailed on. A rematch from SummerSlam, which again makes sense. How we're going to get here, we shall see. Will it be via the Royal Rumble? Will it be via Elimination Chamber or something like that? But we'll see.
It's a crazy one. I mean, yesterday's match felt like it was a house show.
In what respect?
In the way that it was very entertaining. The match itself was very entertaining, but at the same time was meaningless. Like it didn't add anything to the storyline or give us any idea as to what's going to happen next and all that kind of stuff. It was just a good showing from 4 great females.
And if anything, that should have probably been the go home angle before the Saudi show of just no one being able to work with each other and just falling out. They've still got to write SmackDown for this week. They still got to write Raw for next week before the Saudi show. So, yeah.
I'm struggling. Let's keep it women. We've been talking women's wrestling for most of this show. Let's keep it that way, but let's move over to Impact.
Yeah.
Impact Wrestling had their all women's showcase, Knockouts Knockdown, where a tournament was involved. We love women's tournaments right now in pro wrestling. Tournament was involved. We had a championship match, and we also had a Monsters Ball, basically a hardcore match. The show in general was great.
It's a good show.
The show in general was really, really good. We saw some new faces. We saw some some faces coming back, returning faces, and we saw the building of new people as well. Do you think, with everything that happened on that show, that Impact does the women's division on Impact still need work?
I don't think it necessarily needs work. I just think the platform needs to be bigger. That it's not being recognized enough. If I wasn't doing this, I probably wouldn't have clocked onto it. I probably wouldn't have watched it or anything like that. I don't know what it's going to take for Impact to get themselves into a more serious situation in terms of broadcasting, TV deal and network or something, because their platform right now, for all the good work that they are doing, their platform's just too small and it just doesn't get recognized. And that's why, we'll forever just kind of say, talk about the WWE women's division. Although WWE have all the riches of talent, they're not using it very well. AEW are getting there. They've been better in the last year. But really and truly, Impact is probably the most consistent out of the lot. But it's a case of who knows. Because if you're not, actively trying to see what Impact are doing, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
Definitely going to miss it.
What's crazy is I saw a tweet from someone, I can't remember who it was now, after the show, saying that Impact has the best women's division. And they made mention of the fact that almost every female in that division is doing something. And that is definitely true. If that, that would be a reason to push them up there to say, or to be part of the argument of the best women's division. We saw Tasha Steelz reach the final of the tournament. She lost to Mercedes Martinez. Mercedes Martinez is a bit of a legend in her own right, very experienced female.
I was very happy for her.
Yeah, very much kind of, I guess we're probably expecting it to maybe coming towards the end of her career, or teetering on that. When she was in NXT, we were very surprised because we didn't think that they'd be invested in her and all the rest of it. It happened for a few weeks, of course. Now she's not there anymore. Do you think it was the right decision to have Mercedes Martinez become the next contender, or should it have been Tasha Steelz? The reason why I asked this question is for those that haven't really been following Impact, Deonna Purrazzo is the Knockouts champion. And for me, a lot of her challengers have been either semi-retired or women that are not so much active wrestlers and stuff like that. Is it now time for them to build someone to actually take this championship? Do you think Mercedes Martinez can do that?
The problem is, like you said, the word here is building someone, and the tournament and when the championship match is happening is in close proximity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to have that time to necessarily build someone. They should have been building whoever that person is. And with, like you said, the profile of people that Deonna Purrazzo has been facing in terms of age and experience and stuff, these are all, you know, basically check marks for Deonna to say, I've had a brilliant run in terms of look at the names I've beaten. You know, at the end of the day, we're not going to say, oh, well, this person was semi-retired when Deonna faced her. It's just a case of this is the name and that's who she beat. So again, Mercedes Martinez, a brilliant name, very well known in the indies for women's scene, a name that I'm sure Deonna Purrazzo is going to beat. But the likes of Natasha Steeles, they should be maybe building her consistently in the background. Maybe she could have then won this tournament and then goes on to beat Deonna Purrazzo. But again, it's very much right now that Deonna Purrazzo is just on the run of her life. Like,
untouchable.
It's very difficult for anyone to beat her right now that hasn't had a very solid build.
It's very similar to Britt Baker in AEW, to be honest. They're just on this stratosphere that's just like untouchable. You can't even think who could possibly take their championship anytime soon and all that kind of thing, which makes it exciting in its own right, but at the same time can become damaging for those when you're not necessarily outrightly building someone in the background. Tasha Steeles is a very strong competitor. We also saw Savannah Evans win a Monsters Ball match, which is a massive thing for her. That's her first big match that she's won. Obviously, only recently signed. And the other big thing that we saw was Awesome Kong is going to be inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame, which is massive. What I've loved with Awesome Kong in the last couple of months, TNA did their Empower All Women's show. Awesome Kong came out and announced her retirement at that show. A month or so later, she comes out at this show, another all women's show, and it's announced that she'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame. For someone like that, being also only the second female to be inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame after Gail Kim, those two in Impact back in the day, or TNA at the time, were instrumental in making a massive difference.
They were the division.
Yeah, literally were the division, and that division at the time was the only respected women's division in all of wrestling, maybe apart from in Japan, but definitely in the US. The only respected women's division, and it's obviously then had its influence on where we are now in women's wrestling. So to see Awesome Kong get that accolade and be inducted at Bound for Glory is massive. Is a massive thing. Let's move away from our ladies. We've talked about the ladies today. There's other things going on in the world of wrestling. And for me, you know what? We talked about this guy last week and just how amazing his run has been so far and all the rest of it. But Big E had the biggest weekend in his whole life. I mean, the guy turned up as the man to introduce and do the promo for Wilder
and Fury,
and Fury fight. The match itself was crazy. So it's nice to know that we got to see the guy that we call our champion be put out there in such a public way. And people now, have been talking about him. I think I saw a tweet where someone was like, "Oh, someone saw Big E doing the promo, and now they want to start watching wrestling again."
Amazing.
That's it. That's all he was there for. That's what he was there for. Talk about like what does it mean for Big E to be in this position? It now kind of gives me a little bit more confidence that this thing may last a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, they have liked Big E for a very, very long time. Hence why us fans just never really understood, why haven't you pulled the trigger on this guy then?
Right.
Why have you waited so long? Well, wasn't as long as Kofi, but they've waited quite a while.
Yeah.
And you can now see that he is completely flourishing in this role. Like we were saying last week when Gerard was here, like he's still got the comedic elements to him, but he's toned it down. He knows when to use it, when it could be useful. You know, even when he made this reference about the nectar and squeezing juice and going down his nipple today, yesterday on Raw. Yeah, I was thinking, where are we going with this? But it was done at the right place in the promo before things got serious.
Of course.
And this is where, you know, traditionally we've seen the WWE champion get used, crossing over into the mainstream and being given these other kind of opportunities. Now, obviously, his character is everything. The stuff he done for the football game, I don't know much about it, but I saw, you know, the clip of him introducing when that went live and stuff like that. And obviously, he has ties to that football game, to the team. And then the surprise was the Fury and the Wilder thing. Obviously that was hooked up through Fox because the fight was on Fox, but that is exactly where you want to see your WWE champion. And these are the kind of things that will define him when it's all said and done and he drops the title or when he retires. We're going to look at these kind of accolades and be like, but what did he do? Did he transcend and all of that?
Of course.
He's been champion for what? It hasn't been a month yet, has it?
Not
a month, maybe?
Not a month, I think, something like that.
And we're going to be ticking off already the things he's done outside of the ring, not to mention the Netflix movie that came out the other day as well.
Yeah, that as well.
He's taken the ball and he's running. And it looks like they are, so far, very happy with him. I can only imagine he's going to defend against Drew at Saudi Arabia, and Drew goes over to SmackDown. It looks like he started doing some work on the house shows with Seth Rollins. Him and Seth obviously go back to their NXT days. I think, if I'm right, Seth lost the NXT title to Big E. So they've got a lot to kind of draw back on if they want to draw back on NXT 1.0 history. But I think Big E was made for this role, and it's been a very quick ascension since he's become champion to doing this kind of stuff. But you know, like I said, he's made for it almost, and we're just seeing him run with the ball now.
It's crazy, man, because you know, you see the difference. I guess it's the psychology of how pro wrestling works. You see the difference between what Lashley was doing to what Big E is now doing. Of course, you know, for me, the big difference between Lashley and Big E was the thing that I loved and still love about Bobby Lashley is the way he presents himself. The suits and you know, the prestige. He's got that championship prestige. Whereas with Big E, it was, you know, I was getting a bit worried about this whole comedic thing and is it going to work? And it kind of came out of nowhere. There was no real build to him becoming champion. But now that we see him crossing over and making appearances, you know, doing the boxing, the football, it was his former college team, I believe, that he showed up for. And there's clips of him with Daniel Cormier, the former UFC champion, you know, who's a massive WWE fan as well. There was talk of him being a commentator at one point, possibly even becoming a wrestler as well. About 2 years ago, I think it was. So you know, he has that personality to do that kind of thing. Bobby Lashley could never have done that. And I wouldn't have wanted to see him try to do it either. I'm glad he didn't.
I mean, Bobby Lashley's a heel, so they wouldn't have maybe put him in those situations as well.
Exactly.
But even Bobby Lashley doing that long ass promo they made him do on Monday night.
Like 4 or 5 minutes.
Bro, I just felt, I was literally thinking, MVP, come out and save him, please. Like, it's not his bag. So why put him into that situation? You see what I mean? Like, the message he delivered obviously was basically that Goldberg can't kill the Almighty, which we got there in the end, and it was cool. But you've put a man into a situation that he doesn't need to be in. And yeah, he was just getting what chanted and everything all over the place. But yeah, like you said, they've hit the nail with Big E. They're playing to his strengths, and I think this could be someone that we see as WWE champion for a minute. I mean, it makes me think we're gonna get Big E versus Roman at Survivor Series. Roman is Roman.
Roman's Roman. That's fine.
Let's not lie, but cool. Maybe they do some type of funny ending to protect Big E. I don't know.
Interesting. Or maybe they do have him win in some way. That doesn't necessarily make Roman look bad. I don't know what that is at the moment, but it's possible. You know, a Brock Lesnar messes it up in some way or something like that, possibly. If they get that far, who knows? But yeah, I mean, for me, it's now making complete sense. It's now working itself out, as you said earlier. You kind of, a part of you is thinking, why is it only now that it's happening? But at the same time, I think timing is everything, and it's just worked out correct. It's worked out correct, and what he's doing now is definitely major stuff. We only have a few minutes to go of the show. We haven't done this for weeks. Well, it feels like we haven't done this for weeks. But who is your star of the week?
I'm going to go with Xavier Woods. I think his performance against Ricochet last night, well, both men deserve, great performance. Ricochet, it's like every time they put him on Raw, it's like someone rises from the dead. And then they kill him again, and you don't see him for weeks. So I'm really hoping for Ricochet, in fact, that this him going over to SmackDown is some type of resurgence. The fact he's on social media is King Ricochet. I was almost thinking, let the man win the tournament, man. Like, and give him a whole new lease of life on SmackDown. They still need to give him a new lease of life on SmackDown. But yeah, Xavier Woods really showed up. He's obviously bringing that energy of, he loves King of the Ring. This is what got him into wrestling. And this is almost his WWE title if he's allowed to win King of the Ring, although the meaning of the tournament is very little these days. I just thought he was brilliant. It's a pity that Jinder's probably going to beat him next week, but let's live to see it first.
I mean, the hope is that, he does bring back the prestige. Maybe we now know that he and the rest of the New Day have a strong level of influence.
Yeah.
So maybe this is being built for him, or he's had his say and whatever. And then if he wins it, he can also do the transcending thing, because he already does that anyway. In the gaming world and all the other stuff that is connected to that as well. Up, down, down, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that then helps him to, transcend as well. Who knows? Let's hope that's the case. The other thing that you mentioned was King Ricochet. The reason why King Ricochet is King Ricochet is because in his peak, in his indie days, that's who he was. He had a crown. The crown that Montez Ford was wearing was his.
Yeah.
And he had, the long coat, everything. So that was the guy. To see that guy again.
We need him back, man. Honestly,
King again. I need that Ricochet back. For me, my star of the week hasn't been easy, actually. There's been a lot of people that have done great things. Big E's been great, but we've talked about him already. I think I'm going to go with Tasha Steelz, mainly because her showing in that tournament was phenomenal. If anyone didn't see it, Mercedes Martinez is, because they all had matches, the tournament was all night, so both ladies had three matches altogether.
Yeah.
Mercedes Martinez matches were quite relatively quick and easy, whereas Tasha Steelz' matches were very longed out and very difficult.
They made the girl wrestle.
She had to go for it all night. So for her to do that, defeated Chelsea Green, in the semi-final, and obviously had a great match with Mercedes Martinez, coming up short, but it was a great showing from Tasha Steelz, and I think I'm just now excited to see what Impact want to do with her, whether that be short term or long term. I'm just excited to see what she does in the near future. But yeah, man, that for me, she's been the girl, man. She's been the girl this week, definitely. Folks, it's weird. We're actually just hit an hour and we're finished. Let's find something else to talk about for 5 minutes. Yeah, man. Folks, this has been WrstlXtra. Thank you for everyone that's joined us live. You are watching on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. I never say that. Make sure you subscribe.
Subscribe.
You know, to WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. We've got he's gone past 500. Let's get to this 1,000 mark. Yeah,
man.
All right. Share, like, subscribe, everything. Of course, you can follow Mex as well on Instagram, WrestleManiac.uk, and WrestleManiac UK on Twitter. Follow me, of course, on Instagram, Black Wrestling Alliance and Black Wrestling A on Twitter. You'll see me every now and again making noise because that's what I do over there, folks. Just because I can. Folks, this has been WrstlXtra. Thank you for joining us and see you again next week.
See you later, guys.